Welcome guys, in this video we're going to talk about how to solve quadratic equations. So let's start by looking what a quadratic equation looks like. A quadratic equation looks like this. You have a coefficient a and then you have x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So this is what a quadratic equation looks. This is a quadratic. There are multiple ways of solving this kind of equation. The ones that we're going to look on part 1, so this is going to be part 1. We're going to look at two methods. One is factoring and one is the square root property. So let's start by factoring. So for factoring, I'm going to tell you which kind of quadratics you're going to be working with, that I suggest you use this method. So we're going to start with this one. Problem number 1. X squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. Notice the coefficient of x squared is 1. So that's what we want. We want this kind like this to solve by the following method, factoring. So what we do is we draw an x, we put the constant coefficient, the last coefficient with its sign, we put it on top, so negative 10 goes on top, and the middle coefficient, the one with the x term, we put it on the bottom. Now our task is to find two numbers that when you add them gives you negative 3, and when you multiply them gives you negative 10. To me this method is easy, and you'll see why. Because you gotta think about numbers that are closer to these numbers here. So I would see. So how can we make a 10? How can we multiply two numbers and get a 10? 10 times 1, 5 times 2. So let's try that one. 5 times 2. Because look, what signs has to be 5 or 2 to get, when you add them, to get negative 3. Remember, the largest term always has the biggest sign, so we want a negative, so we want to put a negative 5, because negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3, and negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Next step is to put them in parentheses like this. Factoring. These are factors now. Factoring. X minus 5, x plus 2 equals 0. So now this quadratic is factor. The next step is to solve for the x's. We have two x's, so we're gonna do x minus 5. We said each parenthesis equal to the right side, which is 0. X minus 5 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0. So now plus 5 plus 5. So x equals 5, or minus 2 minus 2. 0 minus 2 is x equals negative 2. So x equals 5 or x equals negative 2. That's the answer. So these two are the answers to the quadratic solution. So let's look at a similar example, because we need to learn. So let's go to problem number 2. So right now, remember, we're working with the method factoring. Okay, so let's go to problem number 2. Problem number 2 says that x squared minus 13x plus 36 equals 0. So we draw an x. Remember, the last term, we put it on top, and the middle term, with the one with the x, we put it on the bottom. So what two numbers, when you add them, gives you negative 13, and when you multiply them, gives you 36? Well, so let's think about numbers that multiply to get 36. 6 times 6 is 36. Also 12 times 3 is 36. Also 9 times 4 is 36. I like 9 times 4 because look, 9 plus 4 is 13, but remember, we want a negative. So when we add the two numbers, we have to get a negative 13. So let's put negative and negative. Negative 9 plus negative 4 is negative 13. And negative 9 times negative 4, negative times a negative is a positive, so we have a positive, and 9 times 4 is 36. So we found them. We found the factors. So now we put them in parentheses, x minus 9, x minus 4 equals 0. Now we set each parenthesis equal to 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. So now we add 9 to both sides. Now we have x equals 0 plus 9 is 9. That's the first one. That's the first x we're looking for. Now we want to put a positive 4. So x equals 4. So now we have the two answers, 9 and 4. Those are the x-intercepts for this quadratic. Now we're going to look at 3 examples of how to use the square root property of quadratics. Square root property. So let's look at problem number 3. Problem number 3 says that 5x squared equals 45. That's the problem. So the first step is we need to isolate the x on the left side and leave the rest on the right side. So we would divide by 5. X squared equals 45 divided by 5 is 9. So remember, we want an x equal to a number or two numbers. Remember, a quadratic may have two solutions, one solution, or two or no solution. Okay, so now to get rid of this square here, we take the square root. Alright, so the way that the square root works is that now you get rid of the 2, so you're left with x on the left side. But because you take the square root on both sides, you need to put a positive and a minus square root of 9. So now we have two solutions. And this is equal to, what is the square root of 9? Is 3. So we have positive or minus 3. Those are the solutions. So x equals 3 or x equals negative 3. And these are the final solutions for problem number 3. Let's look at problem number 4. Problem number 4 is a little more difficult. So we have 3 multiplied times the quantity x minus 4 squared equals 15. Remember, we want to try to get x's by itself. So first we can divide by 3. Divide by 3 on both sides. So we have x minus 4 squared equals 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now we take the square root. And we get rid of the 2, but we're left with x minus 4. So we have x minus 4 equals positive or minus square root of 5. Square root of 5 doesn't have an even solution, so we'll just leave it like that. So now the next step is to move the 4 to the other side. So we have x equals 4 plus or minus square root of 5. And that's the final answer because we have two solutions. One is 4 plus square root of 5, and the other one is 4 minus square root of 5. Let's go to problem number 5. Our final problem for the square root property. So problem number 5 says that 4x minus 1 squared equals 16. This time we don't have a number here. So all we have to do is take the square root on both sides. Take the square root. So remember, we took out that, when we take the square root, we take out the square, so we're left with 4x minus 1 equals positive or minus square root of 16. But then this is the same thing as 4x squared minus 1 equals square root of 16 is 4, so we have positive minus 4. Now we have to isolate x. So let's take each case. So we have 4x minus 1 equals 4, or 4x minus 1 equals negative 4. Alright, so now we do positive 1, so 4x equals 5. We divide by 4, so x equals 5 over 4. That's one solution. Or with positive 1, so 4x equals negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. We divide by 4, so x equals negative 3 over 4. That's our second solution. So we have two solutions, this one and this one. And that's the final answer for this problem. So in part 2 on my next video, we're going to look at completing the square and the quadratic equation to solve quadratics. So hope to see you next. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube videos, it really helps. Thank you very much.